Welcome back from the break to our first story this afternoon. The Acting Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority, Amishada Owusu-Amoah, has disclosed that the authority is in the process of automating the payment of value-added tax VAT. This follows some reports that VAT receipts have been falsified by some businesses. According to the Commissioner General, the introduction of an automation system will help improve mobilization. There is more in this report.
The Ghana Revenue Authority in recent times has prosecuted some businesses for falsifying VAT receipts and shortchanging the state, a situation which has denied the country necessary tax revenue. According to the Acting Commissioner General Amishada Owusu-Amoah, automating the VAT system will eliminate cheating and provide revenue.
One of our aims this 2020 is to move into a digital system. I give an example. Currently, we write VAT invoices, and I have shared with you sometimes the number of times people can avoid writing the invoices, the number of times people are able to write, and then on the first sheet they write 16,000. That's the one that goes to the taxpayer. The one that comes to us, they write 160. There's so much of room because of the lack of technology for people to evade. And therefore, if we automate it, as happens in some countries, where you will not be able to sell without collecting the VAT and becomes automatic, then we'll be able to increase the revenue from the tax.
Mr. Amishada Owusu has also been speaking about plans to partner commercial banks for tax payments and to tax online businesses.
You can get your tax receipt by walking into any bank, and therefore you don't need to look for the tax office only when you want to do your compliance or you have an issue you want to resolve. That is when you walk into the tax office. So convenience, because if I'm coming to pay you money, then it might be convenient for me to, if it's, I have to queue for long hours. So this is also another thing that we are working on. And come next year, we hope to deploy these tools. Again, we all know that we can pay either by transfer, by Momo, by... This is another element that we want to introduce, e-payments, so people can pay through these methods. Number 4 that I also want to mention as far as the efforts are concerned, we are looking at the various areas. One of the areas that we have never touched on is the e-commerce. And e-commerce is not taxed at all. And it's one area that we are coming out of a way of taxing e-commerce.
The authority, as at the end of November, assured that it would meet the revenue target for the year, which is 42 billion cedis. Ebenezer Sabte's report for Joy Business.
To our next story, and trade analyst and executive director of the AFCTA Policy Network Ghana, Louis Yao Afo, has commended the French-speaking countries in the West African region for going ahead to introduce the new West African currency, ECO. Yao Afo told Joy Business that pegging the currency with the euro will make these countries withstand international shocks that may hit the economy.
It's pegged at euro because on the good side, I think that the CFA tied to France had helped a bit to sustain most of the economies. So immediately, they weaning off can bring a heavy shock to most of the economies, because France has sustained most of the, these CFA zone, the economies for some time because of its economic strength and its protection of its currency, because of its advanced industrialization. So immediately, if they are just left to go like that, my opinion is that it will bring very viral shocks to most of the developing economies within the Francophone CFA zone.
Okay, but you will also agree with me that some other countries like Ghana and other member states in the West African zone are preparing to move with this currency. We are not ready yet. Even though we say the countries that will be ready will move, we are not ready yet, and then we see our neighbors moving. I mean, is that not going to have impact, a negative impact on us as a country? Is it not going to put pressure on us as well as a country?
Technically speaking, there is no country which is ready. If you are talking about the ECO, technically speaking, no country is ready, because the primary criteria the primary convergence criteria. Some countries meet it this year, then they fail the other year. Ghana was not able to meet one of them last year. It met some of them 2017, they did not meet one in 2018. Nigeria, the bigger power, sometimes a year they're not able to meet the primary criteria, and then the secondary criteria, some of them try. The secondary criteria is the most difficult.
Mr. Alfu, who spoke to my colleague Ebenezer Sabote, advised that the deadline for the introduction to all West African countries should be extended to another 2 years to allow member states to meet the convergence criteria.
And also have the currency circulating or ECHO coming on board live in 2020 when you don't have a central bank. We need to have the West African Central Bank even first along these lines. I know that technically a lot of legal instruments or frameworks have been done, but without a West African Central Bank, the ECO cannot be ready by 2020 as they are looking at. So we are still behind, but I think that we need about 2 years more to work out on this. This is key.
So you think the deadline should be extended?
Precisely. And I'm asking you to use Ghana as the mirror, that by the end of 31st December, are we going to have inflation by 5%? By the end of December 31st, January 2020, are we going to have our debt to GDP ratio less than 70%? If yes, this is a major, and are we going to have our import cover reserves 3 months? If these major three, we are able, then I can tell you that then let's just go ahead and have the Central Bank West Africa formed or established. Then we can go ahead with. For now, it is. I think that it's more or less in street man terms, it's theory.
Away from that, according to the World Bank, flood risks are increasing in the Greater Accra region. It is estimated that close to 3.2 billion worth of economic assets are at risk of flooding in the region. This figure is likely to quadruple by 2050 if no new mitigation measures are taken. We are all familiar with the events of June 3, 2015, where a devastating flood caused 150 deaths and affected more than 50,000 people. This disaster heightened awareness of growing flooding and climate risk in the country. It was also a wake-up call for lasting solutions for flood risk management in the Greater Accra region alone. Joining me in the studio right now is my colleague Philip Namfori for us to take a look at this report that the World Bank, I must say, has released. Philip, I think that reading through this report, it must be worrying, right?
Yeah, it's indeed worrying. The figure there, $3.2 billion. And if we convert to our currency, that should be a lot of Ghana cedis, over 15 billion Ghana cedis, give or take 16 billion Ghana cedis. So I was looking through and I was asking the economic assets. Remember when we had this June 3rd disaster?
Yes.
Let's just take the North Industrial Area Enclave, and we saw what the car companies there had to go through. And I was just thinking to myself, I mean, this whole discussion boils under sustainable development, and how can we ensure that today's generation can meet their needs, can have a decent life, and still have some leftover for future generations. At the core of the sustainable development also is the issue of climate change.
Yes. And
as a business desk, climate change should be of concern to us as Enjoy Business because of the effects it has on Africa. And Africa as a whole hasn't really done a lot in terms of its contribution to climate pollution, but we are the ones going to suffer the most from the detrimental effects of climate change. Why? One, for example, we are essentially an agrarian continent, and let's look at Ghana specifically, an agrarian economy. And if since I was in primary school, we've talked about the fact that our agriculture is rain-fed and we need to boost irrigation and stuff like that. If all of a sudden we have a flood, for example, and this flood affects a farmland whatsoever, disturbs roads, there are concomitant effects.
Yes.
So if food crops are destroyed, you realize that there's a shortage already, and we have a problem in there with regards to our food supply issues.
And roads may also get destroyed
affected.
And it will cut off
exactly.
people.
So I was just musing through, and you know, just a quick disclaimer here, I'm not a sustainable cities expert from what the World Bank was putting out, but we're on the business desk and we can put numbers together to understand things.
We will be speaking to an urban planner and architect, and that's Charles Isel, who will try and also make sense of this. But I recall that the African Risk Capacity Agency, which was put together by the AU, had told Ghana that we needed to be part of a pool, which is a fund, contribute to it, so that when these things happen we could, we can fall on those funds to mitigate these things.
Very right.
But if you look at Accra as it is now you talked about the Northern Industrial Area. Let's look at a place like Makola, which is also like the retailers hub that we have. There are some few warehouses within the Okanshi area. My question has been to look for $3.2 billion. We don't have it.
We don't, but that's why we need to, and the 3.2 billion is the assets at risk.
Exactly.
And that's why if you go through the report, you see that they are putting things in place, projects in place, for us to change certain things. One example is, and I want to read from here, the structural drainage infrastructure improvements and nature-based flood mitigation measures, as well as modernization of the existing flood forecasting, warning, and emergency response system. And I'm just thinking about the emergency response system, I beg your pardon, that NADMO comes to mind. So all these things must come together to work. But as I was just looking through and thinking about this, I was just wondering, look at what happened with the insurance companies. They had to pay off claims simultaneously for the cars that went at risk. Imagine we have a flood somewhere in Accra, God forbid, and all these market women who have families that depend on them, all their goods and services are flushed out, or all their goods, I beg your pardon. That has effects on their family. So these are the things that we need to start thinking of. But from what I read in this World Bank, let me just call it World Bank story, we have to start putting things in place, and different departments or different institutions must come together to work. Because the climate issue, some may decide that, it is not really true, some may agree. But we have to come to an agreement where Ghana as a country and the effects that we will suffer, we must really look at it critically to ensure that all is.
Well, let's go on the phone line and speak to Mr. Charles Isel, who is an urban planner and an architect. Thank you very much for joining us on the marketplace. I think it's in the right direction for me to say Merry Christmas to you. But are you worried that at this time we still have issues when it comes to our drainage system? And of course, this story from the World Bank talks about the fact that we need to deal with these things, other than that a lot of economic assets are at risk.
Yeah, good afternoon. Yeah, certainly, as a Ghanaian, I'm worried. We all come to Accra for some services of assault, and it's our capital. We should build a city that we should all be proud about. But it appears that physical planning has been highly underestimated. It's just there on the record. And then also lack of managing our cities in terms of physical planning has all resulted to this. Water bodies that should have been beautiful waterfronts are all drainage, and we continue to use them as refuse disposal points informally. So naturally, we are just a result of whatever is happening to us in Accra. It's a result of our own actions and inactions at some levels. So I'm not surprised that, well, the World Bank is telling us this. I think we know all this.
Let me ask you, Mr. Isel, is it that we lack the expertise, or is just funding issues? The fact that we don't have the funding to undertake the sort of projects that we need to undertake. It brings to mind the Conti project, which has been on the table for a very long time, at least over 5 years, 6 years. It's been there. We've not been able to do it, to deal with some of these flooding issues in Accra.
Well, I still will start from basic principles of fiscal planning, where any society which gives this kind of abundant freedom, where you can site buildings anyway, anyhow, where the kind of political system we have run over the years is the way it is. These are all contributing, because you see, the politicians, it's about leadership. And it's not as if they don't know. They know. We have the expertise. If it's about funding, I can assure you, if it is something on the heart of the politician, we'll find the funding and do it in phases. I don't think the problems of drainage and flooding is only Ghanaian. It's all over the world. But in some societies, you see that after flooding in 2-3 days, a lot of problems or the water levels will reduce drastically. But what do you see at our end? Highly indiscipline at all levels, physical planning indiscipline, waste management, and on and on and on and on. So I look at it that if we have a strong political will, great cities all over the world had not been built with this kind of freedom and the kind of democracy we practice. They've all been built with some little level of autocratic intervention, which I think we are not ready as a people to accept. And therefore, it's going to be difficult using the modus of operandi currently. It's just going to come and go continuously.
Okay, Mr. Issa, very finally, before you leave us, I mean, should we think as a people of moving the capital city from Accra and probably make sure that we rebuild it? Because some time ago, I remember a professor that was brought in to take a look at Accra and see how he can redesign the whole of Accra for us so we can have a resilient city that can withstand floods.
Well, I think we should remodel Accra. Rebuilding a new city, you know, again, it has its own geopolitical notations depending on who is in power and where it will go. I will seriously suggest of getting, maintaining Accra and getting satellite cities in Accra. We have huge opportunities, Koforidua and Sanwem, Winneba. We can highly integrate them to mainland Accra and fix Accra drainage. It should be fixed, even if we get a new city. Are we leaving the current state for the people who live there to live there in that state? No, we cannot do that. So I think that if a new capital will come, maybe the next 2 generations, yes, but not immediately now.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Charles Isel, who is an urban planner and an architect as well. Let me come back to you, Philip. I mean, you heard him. He thinks that, yes, we may have to redesign Accra. I don't know what you think.
Quick 2 things before I leave. I remember some time ago, Professor Songsori of the Department of Geography and Resource Development, one time also my supervisor, he said something very important. And he said, the perennial flooding we have here is as a result of the nation's disinterest in planning. That's all. We just need to get back to the basics, and together with the planning, the willpower. 2, we need to put in place things that ensure, 1, the mitigation of these effects, and 2, the resilience, how we'll bounce back from these. Because like you said, things happen in other parts of the world, but the response is quick. So that's the things I want to see going forward. We need to ensure that all is well within our city, Accra. That's all.
Thank you very much, Philip Namfori. He is a researcher and an analyst with Joy Business. Now, away from that, as we prepare to usher in a new year, the Ghana Airports Company Limited has resolved to raise standards at the nation's airport to make Ghana a destination of choice within the sub-region. This year, Ghana Airports Company has claimed several prestigious awards for its high safety and security standards, as well as ranked 4th best airport on the continent. Speaking to my colleague Sheila Tamaklo, the managing director of the Ghana Airports Company Limited, Yakwakwa, gave assurance of maintaining and improving standards with the support of the government and management.
The Kotoka International Airport was ranked the best in West Africa by the Airport Council International this year. The rankings, which was done in the first quarter of 2019, also rated Kotoka International Airport the 4th best in Africa, an improvement from the previous year where it was ranked 6th. Similarly, Ghana was awarded the ICAO Council President Certificate for maintaining one of the highest aviation safety and security standards globally at the 40th International Civil Aviation Organization General Assembly in Montreal. On the back of these achievements, the managing director of the Ghana Airports Company Limited said they are poised to raise the standards higher.
We want to improve, because if you do not improve, I can tell you that we start coming down. We are oriented that way. But we know it's not going to be easy because we are not easy targets. Everyone in Africa wants to benchmark against Ghana. If I tell you the number of countries that comes here, the number of countries that come here to sign some kind of technical arrangement with us so that we can support them. Ghana Airport Company is a member of the Airport Council International. In fact, I sit on the board in Africa. And the idea is that we don't want to leave any country behind, so we share ideas. So people come to you and find out what you are doing well. And they say that success leaves clues, right? So when you talk to people, chances are they're going to emulate your examples. So if you stay still, chances are someone will emulate and do better than you. So we are oriented at looking at what we've done to get us where we are today so that we can make it better, so that we can improve our law. So with our orientation, with our resolve, and the commitment from government to support us in this way, I believe that we are not going to come down, but we continue to improve.
The managing director, Mr. Kwakwa, also adds the company is working with Africa World Airlines to operationalize the whole airport.
CTK has started training pilots at home. AWA has also indicated their interest to start operating to home. But we are awaiting a definite plan from AWA to facilitate them, because we have to make the place ready and make sure we have all the assets that they need in order to operate there. And that asset includes even firefighting equipment, first aid equipment, and so forth. But the airport has all the infrastructure that anyone needs to go there. Okay. But there are other facilities that are just enumerated, like even first aid kits and so forth. So we are talking to them, just like we worked with AWA to operate to the WA airport. We are working with them, and once they indicate a firm time that they'll be operating to whole, we will publish it for people to know that the whole airport is open to commercial flights.
Meanwhile, plans are also far advanced to make Tamale Airport a cargo village. For Joy Business, Sheila Tamaklo reporting.
And that's how we end this afternoon's edition of Marketplace with me, Northern Aqua Hayford. For more news, please log on to myjoyonline.com/business, where we have more stories for you over there. Thank you very much for watching. Good afternoon.